Digger and the Dawgz. Crazy Digger, they used to call him. Digger lived long time on the old Crosby claim. Old man Crosby and his wife and their daughter, they lived in a shack up in the mountains outside of Darwoon, scrutching and scrabbing at the rock, looking real careful for the tall-tale ruddish glint of gold in the rusty quartz. Digger lived out there with them, working their prospects. Old Lady Crosby, she died, and then the old man, he died, and the daughter, she moved it away, back to civilization. Digger stayed on in the fallen-down cabin, him and a bunch of scruffy dogs and cats. Digger had been in the Army in Vietnam. It was there he got crazy, most likely. They give him a dust charge and some crazy medicines and veterans' benefits, but the medicine made him sick as well as crazy, so he always figured that they owed him something. In Vietnam, he was exposed to Agent Orange, had running sores, painful spots all over his body. His dogs were all the time licking the Agent Orange sores. Digger maintained that the saliva of doggles contained healing properties. Dog licks helped take care of the skin lesions. On account of his Vietnam brain sickness and his Agent Orange snores, Digger preferred to live all alone in the mountains in the Crosby's old mussed-up shack with holes in the walls, little scraps of rags and a windows, the door hung in cockle-eyed on its hinges. He continued to scritch around in the holes he and the Crosbys had dug in, praying that the good Lord would bless him with a lucky stroke. Once or twice a week, he'd leave the Dawgz to guard his camp and walk to town for water. Sometimes he'd get a ride to Longtree for supplies and food for the animals. A hard winter come. One freezing, windy day, Digger walked into town with his water jugs slung over his shoulders like some Vietnamese coolie. The snow started to fall while he was roiling up cigarettes out of Jesse's boogler can, sitting around in Jesse's bread truck, hunkered over the wood stove, discussing the weather with Jesse and Clay. "You must be freezing your ass out there," so forth. The snow kept falling while they talked about this and that. Started getting dark, so Jesse offered to give him a ride back with the water jugs, but Digger said no thanks, he'd prefer to walk, and off he trudged, leaning into the wind, with a buckpack full of dog food and 6 gallons of water slung over his shoulders, whistling and walking into the deepening snow. They didn't call him Crazy Digger for nothing. It continued to snow off and on for 2 days. Wind blowing so hard nobody could walk around outside. Never seen it this bad in 20 years, everybody says. All the guys are sitting around in Clay's underground house, drinking coffee, talking about the weather. In comes Jesse to consult with Clay. "Do you think Digger's okay out there in the snow?" he axes. "Maybe we ought to go out there and check on him." But the snow was too deep to drive, and they started passing around a bottle of brandy to take off the chill, and pretty soon it was too late to check on him that night. A couple days later, the snow had finally melted enough to drive out in Clay's puck-up early in the morning. He's dead for sure, they figured, driving up past Digger's old bursted-up Datsun. No sign of him or his dogs around the camp. They hollered for him, but there wasn't no answer. They was prepared for bad smells as they tiptoed up to the old broke-down shack, but there wasn't nobody there. Finally, they go over to the old mussed-up Datsun, leaning sideways with 3 flat tires. Wiped the molten ice off of the windows. There was Digger, laying inside of the car, his cheeks all rosy, his pale blue eyes sparkling, And also there was 3 scruffy, hairy dogs and 2 cats, all coddled up with him in a back seat, in a tungle of old ripped-up slooping bag and a bunch of rotten Ermy blankets. Whoa! Digger's alive after all. We thunk he was dead, says Clay, real diplomatic-like, or we would have come looking for you before this. No problem, says Crazy Digger. Why do you think I take such good care of my fur-legged friends?